My name is Monsignor Jim Callahan. I'm the former pastor of St. Joseph Parish. I was stationed here for 20 years. It was during my second year of being a pastorate that the principal, a lay principal, Mrs. Schrader, informed me that she was going to leave. Now, this was in March of that year. And so I realized that it would be very difficult at that time to come up with the new principal. And so I asked the assistant principal, Charlotte Litzinger, to take over the position for 1 year, and Lisa Keevan to be the assistant principal. They both agreed to it. So then I knew I had plenty of time to start a search for a principal. Then it just crossed my mind, wouldn't it be nice if we could get a religious? And I was thinking of the sisters in Alton. They are the Sisters of St. Francis of the Martyr, St. George, I think. And I remember I did not even know how to approach this. So I called the Archbishop, Archbishop Burke, and I told him what I was interested in. And he was very excited about it. But he said, don't go to those sisters. Go to the Dominican Sisters of St. Cecilia in Nashville. And I had never heard of them. I had no idea who they were. But he knew who they were because he would go down there periodically for Mass. And when he was bishop in La Crosse, he had asked for sisters to go up there, but they never were able to send them. And so he said, maybe I'll luck out this time. And so that began the process. He sent me the information, and I wrote to the Prioress General, and she sent me a letter back thanking me, but said this year was not possible because it was just too late. Okay. But to apply next year. And that's what we ended up doing. But during that time, I worked closely with Archbishop Burke. In fact, we even went down to Nashville. I remember we got into a small plane. There was a pilot, myself and the Archbishop, Father Schrader, 4 of us, and we flew from Chesterfield down to Nashville. And that's when I met the Dominican sisters and the Prioress General. And then, we had a nice chat there, and we talked about our parish. They were very interested. And we were probably there a few hours, and then we flew back. And then we just kept in touch. I remember, but the Archbishop told me, don't say anything about this, keep it quiet. So no one in the parish knew I was doing this. No one. I didn't even tell my associate, Father Chris Martin at the time. And so mum's the word, because we just didn't know what was going to happen. And so, but they would, the sisters in Nashville would call me and say, well, can you get us a curriculum of the school? So I had to call over to the school and say, can I have your curriculum? And said, well, why does a pastor want the curriculum? Well, I just want to look it over, just make sure, everything is in order, because I wasn't going to look at it. And so I would have to send that down to Nashville and all throughout the year. And then they were going to decide who they would interview. The way it is with the Dominican sisters, there are bishops from across the country who want the Dominican sisters. And they said the following year they could only open one more school. Okay? It ended up they were going to interview 5 pastors throughout the country. I was one of them. So I realized I had a 20% chance of convincing them to come here. Okay? So this was in at the beginning of November, and they said they would be coming at the end of November. They gave me the date, so we had the date when they were going to come here. So I told the Archbishop, and he said, well, I must be there. He canceled all his appointments for that day to be here. Okay? And it took place in the living room at the rectory. And so, and their whole council was there. I think there was 5 or 6 sisters. So they were in individual chairs. The Archbishop was sitting in the couch. I was in my chair that I usually sit in to watch television. And Father Martin was by the doorway, and there it was. For a full hour, they interrogated me. I did not ask them a single question. Now, normally, the pastor interviews when there's going to be a principal, But with the Dominican sisters, it's the reverse. They interview the pastor. And so I was interviewed on Catholic education. And of course, I'm a product of Catholic education, so I had no problems with that. Then they started asking me about theology. They wanted to know my theological background, my degrees and all this, my vision of the church and everything. they wanted to know everything about me. And it lasted for a full hour. I got to realize these 5 sisters are throwing me questions nonstop for an hour, and I'm just answering them. Well, then finally, the interview ended. And then we were going to take them over to the convent. And I remember I was walking with Archbishop Burke as we were going over. There was just the 2 of us. And he looked at me and he said, "Father Callahan, you did a good job there." And I said, "Well, Archbishop, let's pray the sisters feel the same way." So then we went to the convent, showed them that, and then we went to the school. Of course, there was a lot of excitement. You can imagine the kids had never seen 6 sisters, Dominican sisters, in their habits. And so they were the talk of the school, obviously. And so then they came back, and then we had lunch. So we had lunch for another hour. All during lunch, they keep asking me questions. Not the Archbishop. They asked me. So I was like in another interview. Well, I was exhausted. By the time they left, I had to take a nap. So then I asked them, "Well, when will we know this?" Okay, so this is in November. And I said, "I would like to know by the end of December, because if I have to set up a search, I want to do it sooner than later." And they said, "Well, we usually don't make the decision till the end of January." So I said, "Well, can you move it up a little bit?" And said, "Well, we don't know." Well, anyway, I did not find out until maybe toward the end of January, and they accepted our invitation. And then the sisters moved in, I think, sometime during the summer. So that's really the story of how they came about.
My name is Father Brian Fisher, pastor of St. Joseph Parish in Cottleville. Last year, when I received the call from Archbishop to consider becoming the pastor here, I was a little nervous, knowing that St. Joe's is the largest parish in the state of Missouri, but trusting in the Lord and what He has planned. Obviously, I promised Him in my ordination that I would never say no to an assignment. So I said yes, and I couldn't be more happier over this first year. One of the greatest blessings that I remember I thought about as soon as I received the call was the ability and the opportunity to serve alongside the Dominican sisters. What a precious gift they are. I've had other opportunities in my other assignments of working with religious sisters, and my first assignment was with the Cloistered Sisters, the Passionists in Ellisville. My second assignment in Bolivia, I served alongside Precious Blood Sister from O'Fallon. For a time, I was a chaplain for the Carmelite Sisters of the Divine Heart of Jesus at St. Agnes Home. And so I just know firsthand the beauty of the vocation of the religious sisters, especially as they live in their active contemplative state. So I just was so excited to serve alongside them. One of the greatest blessings, I think, of having the Dominican sisters here at St. Joe's is just the witness of their life. And it's such a beautiful witness. So often, in most parishes, we have the witness of the priests, of the priesthood. And obviously, it's hard to have a parish without the sacramental priesthood. We have the witness of married couples. We have the witness of dedicated single people. But not many anymore have the witness of religious sisters, especially in the beauty of their charism and how they live it. Their prayerfulness, their poverty, and their complete trust in the Lord as they've given everything for Him. After being here 2 weeks last year, the sisters came back from their summer assignments. And I remember seeing them at Sunday Mass, and afterwards, and again, I'm still brand new, still getting to know the place and where light switches are and everything else. However, when I saw the families' reactions and the children's reactions to seeing the sisters at Mass and then afterwards, how they just lit up and stormed them with hugs and just kind of so excited to see these examples of faith in their life. It was almost like they were superheroes, but not inaccessible ones that were right there with them. And everyone was just so excited to have the sisters back on campus because of the blessing that they are for us at St. Joe's. For the past 18 years, the sisters have blessed this parish and this school community by their presence, uplifting and forming young people for generations. And it's so humbling to see how their impact and their witness is it's been infused into the walls of the school and into the parish, just to see their charism light up and all that they offer. When I first got here, I did a blessing of the convent and got a tour of where the sisters live. And it was on that initial tour, again, it was like week 3 for me here, I began to see a lot of concerning things in the convent. One, that this was the structure, the building that we offered for them to live in. While they do take a vow of poverty, it was at a level that I don't believe anyone should deal with. There is problem with mold in the convent. It's almost 100-year-old building, and the old plaster walls have just held a lot of moisture over the years. There's problems with some of the electrical work and the plumbing, and the structure itself. Depending on where the rain comes in, it can run down the basement walls. And on seeing that, I knew that we could do better. I knew that we had to do better for these brides of Christ, that we can offer a living situation that is not just adequate, but that is safe, and that can be built to suit so that they can live their vocation the way their order desires them to and the way the Lord is calling them to. In addition to the convent being kind of unfit for and not very livable because of the mold and other situations, in addition to that, our sisters are active contemplatives. They need space in order to pray, in order to get away from the world. Now, they have very active jobs, obviously, and their roles in the school as teachers and as principal, but also they need a space then as a sanctuary where they can commune with the Lord and each other in their community life. And so we began looking right away for a piece of property adjacent to us that can offer a little bit of a sanctuary and a respite for the sisters so that we can build a convent to suit for them. Last September, Mother came to visit the sisters, and I had the opportunity and the blessing of meeting her myself as the new pastor here. And I walked Mother down and showed her the property that we were hoping at that time to purchase for the sake of a new convent. And as we were standing there looking at the backyard, and it's tree-lined, and I was telling Mother, this is what we're thinking, the place to do it, and she was silent, and I was like, did I make a mistake? And I remember I looked over at her, and she had tears streaming down her face, and she was like, Father, you would really? I said, not I said, we, this parish community, I know we can band together in order to provide for the sisters. And it was at that meeting that Mother kind of let me know, she was, Father, if you build it, could you possibly build a convent that could house potentially 8 sisters? She was, because I would like to send you more for service here at St. Joe's and also other opportunities for ministry within the Archdiocese. And so the current convent obviously could not accommodate, any more than what we currently have in the 4. And so we need to build a convent that can suit 8 sisters, that hopefully Mother will send us 4 more. It's been such a blessing to see how the sisters live their faith. In fact, how their faith is in action in everything they do, and how they live passionately faith, and how they just kind of offer their entire lives. And then as I've been reflecting over not just the sisters' example, I've been humbled by the amazing generosity of the people of this parish, the generosity of faith, that they just boldly live and desire to grow in their relationship with Jesus in so many ways. And so this campaign becomes an opportunity for all of us to put our faith in action so that we can boldly do what we need to do for the sake of the sisters, but also for some needs of the church. While the main thrust is the new convent to house up to 8 sisters, there also were 2 other needs that came to light that we need to take care of in the church building itself. 25 years ago, the lighting was adequate, but since then, technology has changed rapidly, and now our current lighting system is incompatible with new technologies. And so the wiring even has to be replaced throughout the entire church in order to accommodate the new commercial lighting that we will need. Or otherwise, pretty soon it's going to be a pretty dark place to worship in because our lighting system will not be supported in any way. In addition, our organ is in need of an upgrade and update. It's a planned thing. This happens about every 25 years for organs to redo the electrical components and other parts. That is another need that has to happen in order to enhance our worship and to lift our hearts in music and in prayer. The Lord has made it abundantly clear how much He has blessed us. And He calls us then to not be idle, right? To not sit back and just to kind of rest in the laurels of all that we've accomplished here at St. Joe's, but instead to truly put our faith in action to grow constantly and continually in our relationship with Him. And that takes from us sacrifice. So I ask you to join me in mission. That this is not just a campaign about building a structure or fixing lights. This is about being on mission together, about growing in our relationship with Christ and building for the future. And that for us means we need to put our faith in action, to consider what might be a sacrificial gift that the Lord is inviting you to continue our mission here at St. Joe's. I've made my pledge. I ask you to prayerfully consider yours.